Julián Álvarez was born in the tiny village of Chalchín in the heart of Argentina's Córdoba province at the start of the new millennium. Passion for the beautiful game came early, and from the age of 5, he was nicknamed the Little Spider, as he was the smallest of the bunch and was so speedy that it was as if he had extra legs. The aspiring striker stood out during trials for Real Madrid, but the 11-year-old was too young, and the club's policy dictates that a youth player must be at least 13 years old before joining Los Blancos from overseas. An early blow to a youngster's dreams, he endured, and in 2015, Julián was welcomed by River Plate Academy, where he continued to impress, earning a promotion to the seniors 3 years later. Marcelo Gallardo, the head coach, gave Álvarez his first minutes of pro football in October 2018, while his first goal came 5 months later. From here, it didn't take long for the teenager to carve out a first-team spot as either a centre-forward or off the right. His pace, agility and sharp shooting from range made him a handful for defenders. And having shed the little, he was now known simply as the Spider, or La Araña, and became known for his Spider-Man celebration. 2021 was the forward's breakout year, scoring 20 times in the top flight, and suddenly he became the target of Juventus and Atletico Madrid. However, in the new year, it was Manchester City who Álvarez agreed a 5.5-year deal with. Staying put until July, he would see the season out with Los Milloneros, and the Argentine gave his best performance to date in this period, slotting home 6 goals in a single Libertadores fixture. Across 4 years in Buenos Aires, he racked up over 50 goals for River, and won 6 trophies including the Copa Libertadores and the Primera Division, now ready to try his hand at Europe. The most prominent squad issue of the English champions was their lack of an upper echelon number 9. Yet this had already been remedied by the time of Álvarez's arrival, namely Erling Haaland, who Pep Guardiola splashed over £50 million on. It was unlikely that a 2-striker formation would be opted for by the Spaniard, and thus the Argentine's chances of starting regularly didn't look great. As anticipated, the initial months were quiet for the 22-year-old, making the starting lineup only 3 times in the Prem by November, and on 4 occasions in the Champions League. Although, every time he was given a chance, the young forward showed his quality, bagging a double in his full debut as hosts to Nottingham Forest, and averaging a goal contribution per game in Europe. His solid form thus far went under the radar due to the unbelievable rate at which Haaland was making the net ripple, demolishing virtually all goal-scoring records with 18 to his name by the winter break. Despite his brilliance, Pep's side hadn't been perfect, dropping 10 points across 17 matches and slipping 5 beneath the league leaders Arsenal by the time of the World Cup. Starting on the 20th of November in Qatar, Álvarez was included in La Albiceleste's 26-man squad, but with the likes of Paulo Dybala and Lautaro Martinez as his competition, there was no guarantee of significant involvement. They had an inauspicious start, losing to Saudi Arabia on matchday 1, yet they brushed off the cobwebs and recovered confidence to overcome Mexico, but another goalless display from Martinez prompted a change from Scaloni. City's number 19 had come on as a sub in the prior matches and shown a far greater work rate than Lautaro, therefore the manager rewarded him with a place in the starting 11 for their last group match facing Poland. Needing all 3 points for qualification, Brighton's McAllister opened the scoring early into the second 45, which Álvarez doubled with an emphatic yet composed effort into the top corner. Another 2-0 victory got them through to the knockouts, with Álvarez now his country's main striker, on the team sheet again for Australia. His aggressive and incessant pressing was too much for the back line of the Socceroos, and the Spider tapped away his second of the tournament to seal the victory. On the front line, Messi and he were an effective partnership, with the 22-year-old's relentless running affording time on the ball to the skipper with which he could create magic. 8 nations remained, and a date with the Dutch awaited Scaloni's squad. It was a heated affair in Losail, with 11 yellow cards brandished inside the full 90, which was extended to extra time and then penalties. Alvarez was brought off by the time of the spot kicks, observing from the sidelines as La Albiceleste found a way to march on into the semis. The 2018 runners-up proved to be a simple challenge for a group hell-bent on reclaiming the trophy after almost 30 years. Zlatko Dalic's ageing 11 couldn't match their tempo, and half an hour in, Alvarez was brought down in the box, winning a penalty, and Messi did the honours from 12 yards. They had gotten a taste for it, and 5 minutes passed before a counter was spearheaded by the Spider, crawling into the box with the ball stuck to his foot, adding another to his World Cup tally. For the third goal, the PSG number 30 combined with the marksman, going on a solo run, turning Gvardiol inside out to cut a return pass back into Alvarez, extending his scoring streak to 4 in the Middle East. With this, he became the youngest to get a brace in the World Cup semi-finals since Pelé in 1958. For the holders France, Scaloni set up differently, including veteran winger Angel Di Maria, broadening their attack to a front three with the captain on the right and Alvarez down the middle. Owning less than 20 senior caps, the boy from Kelchin was to lead the lines of his nation for the biggest match in the world. A cruise of a first half pleasantly surprised the challengers, slotting away a penalty through the talisman, who then initiated a beautiful attacking move, in which the City forward laid a ball into McAllister, whose square pass to Di Maria set up another. 2 up by the half-time whistle, they were 45 minutes away from euphoria, and the plain sailing continued, dominating the French all over the pitch as they coasted to the gold. By the 80th minute, however, Mbappe had got one back, and 90 seconds later levelled the scoreboard, stunning all and sending the final into extra time. Again the hero, Messi thrashed away what looked like the winner, but his club teammate upset the party once more. The frenzied final was to be decided by penalties, and again Alvarez was merely an observer. Mbappe bagged his third pen of the game, Messi calmly wrong-footed Lloris, but misses from Kingsley Coman and Tchouaméni left Montiel, who recrowned the Argentines. Maybe the greatest game in the tournament's history had ended in favour of Messi and co, as Scaloni's young squad followed in the footsteps of Diego Maradona and La Albiceleste of 1986. An unlikely hero in many ways, Alvarez was a standout, directly involved in 5 goals and stepping up in times of need. Major attention had turned towards the 22-year-old, whose market value had shot up by over 50% in a month. But already at one of the biggest clubs around, he returned to Northern England, where he was showered in affection by his relatively new teammates and staff. Sitting on top of the world, he could have become negligent, but instead Alvarez showed his maturity, working as hard as ever in training so he could be ready when needed by Guardiola, who looked to chase down the Gunners into the new year. In January, he appeared in an FA Cup game versus Chelsea and went on to start another 2 times in the league, both against Spurs, scoring in the first fixture which they won, but failing to do so in London. Needing a near-perfect record to have any chance of displacing Arteta's Arsenal, Pep decided that after a few games as an unused sub, the world champion would be involved much more in the season's latter half. From mid-March, he featured in every league match, popping up with a winner in Fulham and the only goal facing Chelsea, which officially won them the league. City's constant pressure had cracked Arsenal, whose regular slip-ups had allowed the holders to stroll towards a 7th Premier League title. A first European League trophy was lifted by Julián, and in June, having added 3 en route to the final, he claimed the FA Cup as a Gundogan double brushed aside their arch-rivals. Talks of the treble were growing, but the cup they needed to complete it was the only one that had eluded them. RB Leipzig, Bayern Munich and Real Madrid had felt the wrath of Guardiola's side, and the final was the only remaining game of what could be a historical season. Bar a goal in the very last minute against Real, having only been on the pitch for seconds, Álvarez hadn't seen much of the knockouts and wasn't in the lineup against Inter Milan. In Istanbul, City found things tough, unable to breach the Nerazzurri defence as often as they had thought, and even almost conceded. The deadlock was eventually broken nearing the 70th minute mark through a precise Rodri punt, a strike that put the Sky Blues into the history books. A pair of world-class saves from Ederson kept their clean sheet, and they saw out the game, equalling United as only the second English club to achieve the continental treble. This made Álvarez the 10th player in history to win the World Cup and Champions League in the same season, joining an esteemed list of legends including Franz Beckenbauer, Gerd Müller and Roberto Carlos. Now also the only to ever achieve the treble and the international prize during the same campaign, the Argentine has essentially completed football by the age of 23. The trophy's bingo card has been filled out, and now it's about stacking as many more possible across what we can assume to be at least another decade at the top level. With 17 goals in his debut year as City's backup striker, you can only imagine how under a coach like Pep, and in the company of the world-class players at the Etihad, Álvarez can improve and maybe even follow in the footsteps of his club's icon compatriot, Sergio Agüero. Who knows how much higher he can go, but what's for certain is that the Spider has had a brilliant start to his European journey and shows both the potential and desire to become one of the game's most decorated footballers ever.